before the first word was spoken, before the wind ever brushed through a forest, before death or life, the universe was but an eternal void. No day, no night, no time, no language old enough to describe that moment. Only one thing existed: chaos. Chaos was not confusion as mortals would later imagine. Not darkness. Not fire nor water. It was the absence of form, of thought, of boundary. Chaos was the first breath never drawn. The first lightning never struck. The cosmic egg still dreaming in silence. But from that formless emptiness a pulse began. Not the beat of a heart, but the first idea of existence. It echoed across the void with no origin, and from it the primordial beings were born, not birthed, not forged, but expelled by the loneliness of a shapeless cosmos. Gaia, Mother Earth, emerged first, a vast body stretching in all directions. She did not walk nor speak. She was wherever matter existed. Then came Tartarus, the inverted abyss, deeper than deep, where light could not reach, where all forms dissolved. Then came Eros, the first force, the principle of union and collision, not tender love, but the driving force of creation. And lastly, Nyx, night, with Erebus, darkness, two silent beings entwined, casting the ancient black veil over all beginnings. From Nyx alone came beings that even the future gods would fear: Thanatos, death; Hypnos, sleep; Moros, doom; Nemesis, vengeance; and the Moirai, the fates. One spun the thread, one measured it, one cut it. Yet the universe remained silent, still lonely. Gaia, in unspeakable emptiness, shaped a companion, Uranus, the sky. He covered her like a boundless vault, a proud gaze from above. From that first union between earth and sky, life began, not from love, but from creation's raw instinct. They birthed 12 titans, embodying ocean, memory, time, light. Then 3 cyclopes, one-eyed giants. And 3 centimanes, with 100 hands, 50 heads, beings so primal, even Uranus feared them. Out of fear, Uranus buried them deep within the earth, back into Gaia's womb. No light, no freedom, no future. Gaia groaned. Her pain became a sacred fury. From the first dominion, the seed of rebellion was sown. From rebellion, blood would flow. And from that blood, mythology would be born. In the deepest shadows of the earth, a young Titan listened to his mother's whisper. His name was Cronus, not the strongest, but the only one bold enough to wield a weapon against his father. Gaia gave him a sickle forged from Tartarus bone, not to reap crops, but to reap the sky. And so the story begins, not with a lullaby, but with the first slash, with blood, with a scream tearing the heavens. It was not merely rebellion, it was the first epic of the gods. Chapter 1: Origins of Chaos. There was no sound in the primordial universe. No light, no shape. Only a vague vibration, like the first heartbeat in the womb of all phenomena. Life had not yet been born, but it was already dreaming of itself. Within the endless chaos, a thick, invisible mist drifted like an unnamed longing. It had no direction, no end. Yet at the center of that void, a fracture appeared, not with an explosion, but with the first will. Gaia appeared without word, without light. She was born of none. No parents, no origin. She was. And wherever there was earth, there was her. Each time she moved through the chaos, waves of soil trembled, shattering into the first mountain ranges. The seas had no water yet, but she had already drawn their basins. Every crack in her body was an unspoken prophecy. And from that endless loneliness, she shaped a dome. The sky, Uranus. Uranus had no bones, no flesh. He was a dome of dim light, silver blue, like a veil spread over Gaia. Uranus gazed upon her, not with love, but with possession. There were no words between them, but the first tremors occurred, like thunder crashing between 2 primordial beings. From that first contact, multiplication began. The Titans were born: Oceanus, Hyperion, Thea, Iapetus, Mnemosyne, Cronus. They had no fixed form. Each carried a piece of the cosmos' soul: water, light, memory, time. Then came the Cyclopes, one-eyed giants, who saw through reality, and the Centimanes, with 100 hands and 50 heads, creatures of raw, unfiltered rage. But Uranus, upon seeing them, felt terror. He feared that these children would one day rise beyond his grasp. So he shoved them all deep into Gaia, burying them within her body as if they had never been. Gaia suffered, not physical pain, but the pain of a mother betrayed. She could not forget the screams of children who had never seen the light. So she silently planted the seed of rebellion. She went to each Titan and asked, "Will you bear arms against your father?" Most bowed their heads. Only one stood, Cronus. Cronus was not the strongest Titan, but he had a cold silence and an unblinking gaze. Gaia gave him a sickle forged from Tartarus bone, sharp enough to slice through time. That night, when Uranus cloaked Gaia, as he always did, Cronus hid in the shadows. As sky joined with earth, Cronus swung the sickle. One slash, a scream. Blood fell like crimson comets. From that blood, new beings were born. The Erinyes, goddesses of vengeance, the Gigantes, giants, and from sea foam, Aphrodite, goddess of beauty. Uranus screamed, then vanished. Cronus ascended. A new era began, the age of the Titans. But he did not know that the curse had passed on to him. Your son shall overthrow you, as you did your father. Chapter 2, Blood of the Sky. The earth was no longer silent. After that fateful night, the wind began to blow. The wind carried the scent of metal, the scent of blood. For the first time since chaos, the universe knew pain. Uranus had vanished. He did not die. No primordial god could vanish like mortals. But he was torn, not just in flesh, but in dominion. The blood of the sky fell upon the earth, birthing creatures no one welcomed. From each drop of blood grew twisted, malformed shapes full of rage. They belonged neither to sky nor to earth. They were born of rebellion and resentment. The Erinyes, goddesses of vengeance, with serpents for hair and eyes burning like embers. They bowed to no one. They begged for nothing. They tracked blood, like spirits possessed by fate. Then came the Gigantes, giants born of fury, taller than mountains, their skin rough like volcanic stone. Wielding flaming oaks, they stomped across rivers, as if cracking the world beneath them. And from the white foam where the sky's blood met the sea, another figure emerged, Aphrodite. Not a warrior, not a wraith, but a beauty none could resist, born from the agony of the cosmos. Cronus stood, still holding the blood-stained sickle of his father. He did not smile. He felt no pride. His victory bore no song. Only the cold wind rushing over the freshly born mountains. The Titans gathered, no longer trembling, no longer buried. Cronus raised the sickle high and declared, "From this moment forth, the one who gives light is no longer Father Sky, but me." Gaia stood silently behind him. She said no words of thanks. She knew blood once spilled would spill again. No rebellion is ever the last. Cronus ascended as king of the Titans. He sat atop the world, at a place without name, only called the axis of the cosmos. From there, he looked upon earth, sea, and sky, and believed himself invincible. He married Rhea, his sister, a Titaness embodying birth and the rhythm of time. Together, they bore 5 children: Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, and Poseidon. But within Cronus, one echo never faded: the curse of Uranus, that one day his own child would overthrow him. And Cronus, once a rebel, now became a coward. Each time a child was born, he would not look upon it, would not name it. He swallowed them, one by one. Rhea wept, but she could do nothing. He was king, a god, the one who had once slain Father Sky. Each child sank into his belly, like darkness devouring dawn, until the 6th child was near birth. Rhea could no longer bear it. She went to Gaia, her mother, and pleaded, "Help me save my final hope." Gaia nodded, said nothing. She led Rhea to a secret cave on the island of Crete. There, she gave birth to her final child, Zeus. Rhea wrapped a stone in silken cloth. When Cronus came, he suspected nothing. He swallowed the rock like he had swallowed every unborn dream. And, in the heart of the cave, Zeus opened his eyes for the first time. No lullaby, no comfort. Only the drumbeats of the Curetes masked the infant's cries. Zeus drank the milk of Amalthea, the divine goat, and grew with thunder in his chest. No one taught him rebellion. He was born for it. While Cronus sat on his throne, thinking he had swallowed fate, he did not know that in that moment, fate was raising the heir of lightning. Chapter 3. The Last Child, Zeus. At the peak of the world, Cronus sat among the clouds, holding a scepter made of dim light. He had overthrown his father. He had swallowed every child, each drop of his own blood, to protect his divine throne. He believed fate had been imprisoned inside him. He was wrong. On the island of Crete, deep within the sacred cave of Mount Ida, Zeus was born in secret. No gods witnessed it. No trumpets. No falling petals. Rhea, the weary mother, did not cry. She was too tired from loss. But this time she would lose no more. She gave the child to Amalthea, the divine goat, who would nourish him with sacred milk from the mountain. Inside the cave, the Curetes dancers pounded their shields and feet to the ground every time Zeus cried, so that no sound could escape into the world Cronus ruled. Zeus grew up among stone, wind, thunder, and milk. No palace, no lessons, no glory. Only the story of his father, the one who had swallowed his siblings whole. He knew not anger, nor love. He only knew that it was time someone stood up. One day, when the first gleam of manhood flickered in Zeus' eyes, a whisper came. Not from men, not from gods, but from deep within the earth, from Gaia. You are the last, but you are also the first. You are the hope that was swallowed, but also the light that will be spat back. Gaia led Zeus to Metis, the primordial goddess of cunning, who belonged neither to Olympus nor the Titans. Metis looked at Zeus and said, "To save your siblings, first you must make your father open his mouth." Zeus asked no questions. He only bowed. Metis plucked a root from the edge of Tartarus, one that could stir the belly of gods. Now it was time for Zeus to leave the cave. No one recognized him. No one knew his name. Only a quiet thunderbolt followed every step he took. Zeus approached Cronus' palace, disguised as a new servant. Cronus, older, heavier, still believed his kingdom was untouchable. Zeus poured his father a goblet laced with Metis root water. Cronus drank, and minutes later, the god of time vomited up his own children. One by one, Hestia, Demeter, Hera, Hades, Poseidon, glimmering in divine fluid, but alive. They opened their eyes and saw Zeus standing there, with no scepter, no throne. But each one knew he was the one they would follow. Cronus roared like wind between two mountains. The sickle he once used to dethrone the sky now lay forgotten in stone. He understood the moment had come, the moment he became the second Uranus. Zeus did not kill his father. He didn't need to. Revenge was not the goal. A new order was. The siblings knelt before Zeus and swore to rise against all Titans. And so the war began. No longer a personal rebellion, but a cosmic war between two generations of gods. Chapter 4. The War of Gods. The sky had changed. No longer was it the silent dome of Uranus, nor the arrogant throne of Cronus. Now it was trembling, darkening. A storm was coming, not of wind, nor rain, but of gods. It began with a whisper, then a strike, then 10 years of thunder. The Titanomachy, the war of gods. A war not of mortals, but of forces so vast they bent the bones of mountains and tore the rivers from their roots. Zeus stood tall, his voice no longer boyish, his shoulders broad with command. Behind him, 5 siblings, newly freed from the belly of time. Before him, the old gods, the Titans, still powerful, still numerous, still unyielding. Cronus had retreated to Mount Othrys, his sacred seat of Titan power. Zeus chose Mount Olympus. 2 mountains, 2 thrones, 2 visions of how the world should be ruled. At first, the war was not war, It was declaration. Zeus, booming across the sky. You who swallowed your children, who choked the future to preserve the past. You are not king. You are rot. You are shadow. Cronus, voice like breaking stone. And you, who were raised in secret like a weed in the dark, you are not air. You are mistake. You are rebellion given shape. The first blows were not weapons. They were earthquakes, tempests, cracks in the sky, volcanoes erupting without name. The world screamed, and the gods screamed louder. The first battle was chaos. The Titans, vast and ancient, fought with fists made of mountains and voices that shattered hearing. The Olympians were fewer, but they moved with purpose, with fury, and with something the Titans had never known: hope. Hades struck from below, rising from fissures in the earth, casting shadows that devoured light. Poseidon unleashed waves from beneath the land, flooding Titan fortresses with impossible sea. Hera, Demeter, Hestia, they did not stand behind. They fought with flame, with famine, with unbreakable will. And Zeus hurled bolts not from his hands, but from his soul. Each one a message, each one a sentence. But the Titans were not so easily broken. Atlas, the unmovable. Hyperion, who held the sun. Iapetus, father of mortal destiny. Crius, the dark-shouldered ram. And Cronus himself, still wielding time like a blade. They pushed the Olympians back again and again. For every mountain the gods shattered, the Titans raised 3 more. For every river diverted, the Titans split the sea. The war was balance, stalemate, until Zeus realized, we are fighting them on their terms. We must fight them with something they fear. He went downward, to Tartarus. No god had dared enter the prison at the edge of the world. There, bound in chains forged by Uranus, lay the first children of Gaia, the Cyclopes, giants with one eye and the power to forge with lightning. The Centimanes, beings with 100 arms and 50 roaring heads. They had been condemned for their power, forgotten for their fearsome shapes, abandoned. Zeus did not flinch. He tore the chains himself. The Cyclopes blinked. They looked at him and said, will you cast us into another cage when your war is won? Zeus replied, without hesitation, I will give you the sky to stand on and the storm to hold in your palms. The Cyclopes gave him gifts. To Zeus, the thunderbolt, a weapon of absolute command. To Poseidon, the trident, 3-pronged, to tear apart any boundary. To Hades, the helm of darkness, to walk unseen among death itself. And the Centimanes? They roared with laughter and marched to war. The next battle was not fought in valleys or skies. It was fought in the heart of the earth, where light had never touched. The Centimanes hurled mountains like pebbles. They struck with 100 fists, each blow a continent cracking. They roared, and the Titans, old as time, trembled. Cronus watched his brothers fall. Atlas, pinned under the weight of Olympus. Hyperion, burned by the fire he once commanded. Iapetus, bound in chains of his own forging. And Cronus, finally, faced his son. No sickle, no army, just thunder in the sky and silence in his heart. Zeus stood before him, face as calm as a sleeping sea. Cronus raised a hand. You are my blood. You are my doom. Zeus answered, you are my origin, but not my destiny. And the storm came down. Lightning pierced the mountain. Thunder cracked open the air. Time itself recoiled. When it was done, Cronus was not dead. Zeus did not kill him. He cut him out of time, cast him into Tartarus, where moments do not pass. Cronus would dream, forever, of rule he could no longer touch. The war was over. The Titans who rebelled were chained. The Titans who submitted were spared. The Centimanes stood as wardens of Tartarus. The Cyclopes returned to the forge beneath Olympus, forever shaping the thunder. And the Olympians? They rose. Zeus claimed the sky. Poseidon, the sea. Hades, the realm of the dead. The world was divided. And for the first time in all of creation, the cosmos was governed by will, not by fear. But Gaia watched, and deep in her rootless heart, she whispered, "This is not the end. Titans fall, gods rise, but the earth remains, and even the mightiest shall answer to time." Chapter 5. The Age of Olympus. The war had ended, but the thunder did not stop. It echoed through the bones of mountains, through the waters of the sea, through the silent breath of the underworld. For the first time since chaos gave birth to form, the world had rulers not of raw force, but of choice. Zeus, Poseidon, Hades, the three brothers, stood upon the ashes of a shattered era. Behind them, the old gods lay broken, buried, or bound. Before them, a world without a crown. They did not argue. They did not fight. They drew lots, a game of fate, played not with dice, but with threads of destiny. Zeus drew the sky, vast, storm-filled, and watchful. Poseidon drew the sea, deep, shifting, unknowable. Hades drew the underworld, dark, silent, and patient. Thus, the cosmos was divided, not by bloodshed, but by a bargain struck beneath the stars. Zeus built Olympus, not a palace, but a presence. It was carved not from stone, but from cloud, light, and echo. No door, no wall, only thrones that responded to will. 12 would one day sit there. But first came the three sisters. Hestia, goddess of hearth and home. Her presence was warmth, not flame. Demeter, goddess of harvest. Wherever she walked, grain sprouted. Hera, queen of Olympus, who would one day become the storm in Zeus's sky. Together with the brothers, they formed the first pantheon. But peace is not born from war. It is built moment by moment. And so the gods began to shape the world not with weapons, but with meaning. Zeus raised his hand, and from it came law, not written, but felt in the bones of kings and the hearts of mortals. Poseidon struck the earth with his trident, and fresh water sprang from the cracks, feeding the land and giving birth to rivers. Demeter sowed the first field. Hestia lit the first eternal flame. Hera began crafting oaths and unions, the invisible chains that bound promise to consequence. But beneath the silence of Olympus, Hades descended into the realm none wished to see. He did not build with joy. He built with inevitability. His kingdom was not fire. It was quiet and full of echoes. He created thrones not for gods, but for souls. He named each part of his realm. Asphodel, where the forgotten wandered. Elysium, where heroes rested. Tartarus, where punishment never blinked. And to guard the gates, he forged Cerberus, the hound with 3 heads, past, present, and future. The Olympians grew strong. They grew radiant. They grew curious. And with their new kingdom, they began to create children, not mortals, not titans, but something in between. They were born of will and function, each god or goddess a reflection of the world's new rules. Athena, born from Zeus's mind fully armored, goddess of wisdom and war, of strategy over strength. Ares, born of union between Zeus and Hera, goddess's wrath made flesh. Apollo, god of light, music, and prophecy. Artemis, his twin, goddess of the hunt, of the moon, of wild silence. Each Olympian, a new law of nature. Each step they took, a myth formed beneath their feet. Mortals had not yet arrived, but the world was being shaped for them. Time began to move in rhythm. Seasons formed. Spring with Demeter's blessing. Summer with Apollo's fire. Autumn with Persephone's descent. Winter with her absence. The world began to remember itself. And memory, like fire, spread. But not all was peace. Even gods carry seeds of pride. And in Olympus, pride is a storm that waits for wind. A quarrel began. Hera questioned Zeus's rule. Poseidon envied the sky. Hades, quiet as always, whispered only to shadows. And among them, Athena stood apart, not with rebellion, but with foresight. She warned Zeus, even Olympus must obey balance. The higher you fly, the more you tempt the fall. But Zeus, crowned with thunder, answered, I am the balance. My will is the storm and the silence after it. Athena said no more. She simply began building libraries instead of thrones. Elsewhere, in the corners of the world, Gaia stirred. She had watched Cronus fall. She had watched the war. And now, she watched the Olympians rule, with lightning and law. But Gaia did not forget. She remembered the giants, the children of blood spilled unjustly. She remembered Typhon, the monstrous storm still slumbering beneath Mount Etna. And she whispered to the earth, "Let them build. Let them rise. But the deeper the roots, the greater the quake." The age of Olympus had begun. Temples would be raised, statues carved, offerings made. But so too would be envy and betrayal and tragedy. And far off in the winds of time, a figure waited. One who would steal fire not for gods, but for mankind. Chapter 6. The Thief of Flame. Before mankind had a voice, before they could shape stone or carve thought into symbols, they sat in darkness, shivering, silent, and blind to the world the gods had made. They were creatures of flesh, but no fire. Born from clay, molded by Prometheus, the quiet Titan. He who had not joined the war, who had watched from the shadows. Not out of fear, but because he was waiting. Prometheus had seen what the gods had become. Glorious, yes. Powerful, certainly. But distant. They lit Olympus with lightning and song, while mortals below clawed through the cold. Prometheus whispered, "We are not gods because we rule. We are gods because we remember what it means to crawl." So he descended. He walked among the humans. He taught them how to stack stones, how to cut flint, how to track the stars. But still, they huddled in the dark. They had no fire, because Zeus forbade it. Fire was the spark of gods, the symbol of divine will. To give it to mortals was to challenge Olympus itself. But Prometheus was not afraid of Zeus. He had seen tyrants fall. He climbed to the peak of Olympus, past the winds that screamed his name. There, at the forge of Hephaestus, god of flame, he stole a single ember, a coal glowing with the light of creation. He hid it in a stalk of hollow fennel, and like a thief of destiny, he brought the flame down to earth. When the first fire was lit, mankind opened their eyes, not with vision, but with awareness. They cooked. They forged metal. They painted stories on cave walls. They danced under sparks that reached for stars. And the gods, watching from above, knew something had changed. Zeus's fury was immediate. He has betrayed Olympus. Not with blade, not with war, but with compassion. He summoned Prometheus. The Titan did not kneel. He did not speak. He only stared back. And so Zeus passed sentence. Let him be bound, not to a wall, but to the bones of the world. Prometheus was taken to the Caucasus Mountains, where rock met sky and wind never slept. He was chained to the cliffs, iron forged by divine will. And each day, an eagle, child of Zeus, would descend and tear out his liver, which would regrow by night, so the agony would never end. Prometheus did not scream, not once. The wind howled for him. The rock wept for him. The flame he gave to mankind burned brighter with every drop of his blood. Some say it was pity that moved the gods to eventually release him. Others say it was Heracles, son of Zeus, who defied his father and broke the chains. But Prometheus's true gift was not fire. It was defiance. The idea that gods could be questioned, that the sky itself could be stolen from. And so the world changed again. Chapter 7. The Box of Sorrows. Zeus does not forget. Prometheus had stolen flame. And though his punishment had been eternal, it was not enough. Because fire had spread. Because mortals now dared to think, build, question. Zeus would not strike them down. He would not flood the world or burn their homes. He would do something far worse. He would give them a gift. From clay and breath, the gods crafted a woman. Her name was Pandora, all gifted, because each god, each goddess, gave her something. Beauty from Aphrodite, music and voice from Apollo, grace from Athena, curiosity from Hermes, and silence from Hera. But Zeus gave her nothing. Nothing but a seal jar, and a smile that knew more than it said. He sent Pandora to earth, to live among men, to bring delight, softness, wonder. Mortals welcomed her. She was unlike anything they had ever seen. And in her hands she carried a container, a gift from Olympus, forbidden to open. It had no key, but Pandora didn't need one. She could feel it, the hum of something inside, like wind behind a closed door. At night it whispered. It called her by name. It promised nothing, but it tempted everything. One morning, as the stars faded and dew still clung to grass, Pandora opened the jar. Just a crack. Enough. From within burst every sorrow the gods had hidden. Plague on wings of ash. Grief trailing smoke. Hatred burning red. Envy with 1,000 eyes. Death cloaked and patient. They screamed into the world, racing like fire down a dry hill, and no one could stop them. Pandora tried to shut the jar. Too late. All had escaped. All but one. Inside the jar, trembling like a bird, was something small, faint, glowing, weak. Hope. She wanted to let it go, to chase after what she had released. But instead, she sealed the jar. Hope remained. Not free. Not gone. Just waiting. And so the world changed once more. Fire had made men strong, but sorrow made them human. They now cried. They now feared. They now hoped. Zeus, watching from above, said nothing, only smiled again, because he had not destroyed mankind. He had given them the weight of being mortal. Chapter 8. The Rise of the Giants. The earth does not forget blood. It remembers every drop. And from the wounds of Uranus, where his divine ichor spilled upon Gaia, something monstrous had been planted. The giants, not titans, not gods, not mortals, but something born in vengeance, born not to rule, but to destroy those who did. Gaia had watched Olympus rise. She had seen Cronus fall, Prometheus chained, Pandora weep. She had given the world to the Olympians once. Now she would take it back. She called to her sons, the Gigantes, buried deep beneath mountains and oceans. And they heard her. One by one, they clawed their way up, from roots and stone and lava, emerging taller than trees, broader than cities. They carried clubs of burning pine, spears made from lightning-struck trees, shields crafted from continents. Their war was not against mortals. It was against Zeus and all his kind. The gods were unprepared, for these were not titans, bound by pride or prophecy. These were creatures of fury, driven by Gaia's command and hatred of the sky. They marched on Olympus. The mountain trembled, clouds turned red, and thunder fled. Zeus cast his lightning. It scorched one giant, but two more rose from its ashes. Poseidon summoned tsunamis, but they walked through the waves like earth itself. Ares charged, roaring, only to be struck down by a boulder as wide as a temple. Even Apollo's arrows shattered against their skin. The gods called upon every ally. Athena stood beside mortals, giving them spears of thought and armor of truth. Artemis hunted from above. Hermes ran messages across dying lands. Still, the giants surged upward, each step cracking Olympus at the base. Gaia whispered to her children, "Do not stop until the heavens fall." But the gods had one last answer, a prophecy. Only with the aid of a mortal could the giants be truly slain. And so Zeus turned to Heracles, son of a mortal woman and of Zeus himself, strongest of men, bearer of 12 labors, fated to end the age of monsters. With bow in hand and lion skin on his back, Heracles climbed Olympus, not as a god, but as the weapon the gods had no power to forge. He aimed at the giant Alcyoneus, who could not die on his native soil. Zeus hurled him across the sea, and on foreign land, Heracles pierced his heart. One by one they fell, Porphyrion and Celadus, Ephialtes, each giant stronger than storms, each struck down by god and man, side by side. At last, the war ended. The survivors were buried beneath islands. It is said when volcanoes erupt, it is the giants screaming, trying still to reach the sky. Gaia fell silent, her wrath spent. but her roots remained, deep, ancient, waiting. And Olympus, cracked but standing, now knew this truth. No throne is eternal, not even a throne in the clouds. Skull Chapter 9, Fate and the Shadows Below. Olympus stood, radiant and victorious. Its halls were polished with starlight. Its gods sang of triumph and order. But not all laws are written in lightning. Beneath Olympus, deeper than ocean and root, lay the realm of those who do not rise, the underworld. And in that kingdom of shadow, three forces moved in silence, more ancient than Zeus, more final than war. Thanatos, the god of peaceful death. He wore no crown, bore no sword. He simply arrived. Soft as sleep, final as stone. The Moirai, the Fates, three sisters seated by a loom that no god could command. Clotho, who spun the thread of life. Lachesis, who measured it. Atropos, who cut. Not even Zeus could bribe them. Not even Hades dared ask them questions. They wove all destinies, god and mortal alike. Without passion, without pity. Zeus once asked Hermes, "If I command the sky, and Poseidon commands the sea, and Hades commands the dead, then who commands the future?" Hermes bowed his head. Not us, not anyone. In the deepest halls of Hades, among the still souls and forgotten names, a shadow moved, not a god, not quite a curse, but something older than desire. It was Moirai's memory walking. The Fates had seen everything. The fall of Uranus, the madness of Cronus, the pride of Zeus, the suffering of mortals. They said nothing, but they whispered to the thread, and the thread began to fray. One night, Hades stood before the loom. He did not speak. He only watched. The sisters didn't blink. And Atropos, with her scissors of twilight, cut a single strand. A name fell, not of a man, but of a god. Hades turned, and for the first time since time began, he smiled. Meanwhile, above, the gods grew bold, immortal, eternal. They forgot their own endings. But endings do not forget. And in the echo of every prayer, in the flicker of every flame, fate watches, waiting. Final chapter. Chapter 10. The Whisper of the End. In the silence after victory, a whisper began. Not in Olympus, not in Tartarus, but in the hearts of mortals. It was not rebellion, not defiance. It was simply this. Why do we need gods? Time passed. Temples rose, and so did cities. Priests sang. Offerings burned. Statues gleamed. But questions had taken root. Why must men fear the sky? Why does thunder judge love? Why are we punished for fire, yet born cold? Zeus felt it. The thunder was still his. But fewer called his name. He wandered Olympus, through halls that echoed with old hymns, through chambers full of gold and absence. He stood at the edge of the clouds and listened. Silence. Hermes returned from earth with fewer prayers each day. Demeter saw fewer harvest festivals. Poseidon heard more sales than sacrifices. And Hades? He saw no change. The dead always remembered, but the living had begun to forget. In the shadows beneath memory, a new flame flickered. Not divine, not stolen, but made by mortal hand. Men began to write, to reason, to invent. They built not altars, but libraries, not myths, but ideas. And though they still feared, they no longer knelt. One day, Prometheus, freed at last, stood at a mountain's edge. He saw fire in a village below, not from heaven, from stone and spark. He smiled. On Olympus, thunder still rolled, but it felt hollow. Zeus sat upon his throne, not as king, but as a memory. And even memory fades. The gods were not gone, but they were no longer needed, not feared, not worshipped, not hated, just remembered, in stories, like this one. And so, the myths come to an end, not with a cry that shakes the heavens, not with a final bolt of lightning, but with a slow, echoing silence. the kind only the oldest gods understand. Olympus did not fall, but it faded. Altars gathered dust. Prayers no longer danced upon the wind. The gods, they did not die, for gods cannot die, but they dimmed, like stars vanishing in the light of morning. The fire Prometheus stole still burns, not atop sacred mountains, not in temples of marble, but deep in the heart of man, in thought, in will, in the longing to rise beyond fate. Mankind no longer needed thunder to guide them. They learned to look up and walk on. And mythology, once the heartbeat of the cosmos, now lives in another form, in books, in plays, in stories whispered to children before sleep. Yet, if ever you find yourself alone in the dark, beside the dying flame, listen closely. You may hear a voice, soft, distant, higher than the clouds, a whisper from the realm above. We are still here, in memory, in fire, in you. You have journeyed with me across a long road, from the unnamed chaos, to the rebellion of Cronus, to the thunder of Zeus, to the sorrow of Pandora, and the final arrow of Heracles. But truly, all of this was but the vessel for a single truth, the birth of free will. Thank you for walking the full length of this mythic tale. And farewell, until we meet again, in another world, where words still hold spirit, and myth still breathes within the imagination of humankind.